welcome back. This will be the first long form video of the year. Is it? I'm pretty sure. Anyway, just got back to the gym, just got showered, which may seem counterintuitive seeing we're about to get dirty again, but you know, if you know, you know. And I got all the brake parts back from Damien. I got the other bracket for the driver's side that needs to be modified for the front brakes, as well as the bracket and bolts that we are assuming will fit the same for the rear, because I haven't test fitted the rear yet. If they do go on the same as the CTSV rear brakes, cool, because as far as I know, based on my research, the rear rotors should be more or less the same. Well, the rear calipers should be more or less the same. The fronts are slightly different, but they shouldn't be so different, at least they don't seem that way up to this point, that with some mild modifying, they shouldn't go on the car all the same. So we're going to go ahead and widen the hub-centric hole there for the rotor, both rotors, so they slide on the front, test fit the brackets and kind of see where we're at, put on the rears, and if we have enough time before I pick the kids up. I'm going to install the Blitz turbo time or boost controller in the Subaru, as well as some door speakers that, excuse me, were supposed to be a Christmas present, but then we got them a different car, then I got stuck with the car, so I guess I got the Christmas present. Anyway, doesn't matter. So I'm going to do my best to shoot this as step-by-step as possible. It's just me. My helper is at school, so there's that. But it's a beautiful day today. It's going to be nearly 70. I'm off today, so I'll be able to work pretty much all day, and I cooked dinner for the week yesterday. So a lot of things are looking in our favor to be able to get a lot done on the GTO and a couple of extra things on the Subaru if time allows. So anyways, let's get started. All right, so taking a quick break. I did get a little bit done and got the rotors to fit. From the looks of it, it looks like we're going to be okay. I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about here in a second. So the rotor's on there, and it's two-piece Glory. This is a factory Cadillac ATSV front rotor, okay? And it's a two-piece design. The offset and the hat seems pretty close to the GTO one. There's a little bit of a difference here, but overall height-wise, we're pretty close. The thing is, it's back here where we have that adapter, and this is why we couldn't make any more modifications on this until we had this in place. So I got this two lugs on there. You can see that second lip that on the hub. That's where the rotor hat sits on. It's flush all the way to the back or the face of the bearing. Anyways, so we're pretty much okay. Obviously, this has to be cut, but you can see where I marked it. I kind of figured I had to cut back at least that far to make space for these, right? I had to accommodate that thickness there. And so I might have to pull this out a little bit because those are just washers to give us a rough frame of reference. Cut this down flat, bring this out maybe 1/4 of an inch or so, and this should slide in there like a regular rotor and sit right about where it needs to be. So what we're going to do in this kit, Damien sent me longer bolts by about 1 inch or so. That should go right here. And you can see that difference in length just about. We might have to come out, not all of that, but a probably good chunk of it to torque that back down to put that where it needs to be. So the only thing for me to do now is to pick this rotor up and just kind of sit it in place and see how far off we are. So I'm gonna do that and get back to you guys. All right, so I'm holding the caliper in place. Don't mind that ringing. That's the flood alarm they test every Wednesday or Tuesday. You can see here, this is pretty much centered on the rotor. There's pads in there, right about where it needs to go. And so you can see that needs to come out probably about another inch. Yeah, probably about 1 inch to get us where we need to be once we cut that space down. And then put those spacers underneath the main bracket to lock that in place. And then trim the ends accordingly so this will slide up over it just like OEM. And that's pretty much it. So all things considered, the amount of modification is pretty minor. Yeah, it's a lot, but it's not. Because this is a homemade adapter kit. Nobody's done this before. And for as long as this goes along the way I think it will in my head, with the trimming and the spacing, that more or less goes on there like it does on the GTO kit that this was originally made for, at least in the front. So I'm going to do some playing around with the adapter. I'm going to try to cut it. I don't really have anything to cut that with outside of a Sawzall blade. But we'll see what we can do with what I got here on hand. I might have to use a cutting wheel or something just to cut that as straight and as true as possible, and then grind down the difference to get that to sit right about where I need it to, and just kind of see what happens. As long as I can make that happen to get all this roughly bolted into place, that's pretty much going to be the same thing that happens on the driver's side. And then we'll finalize everything and the brakes are done. And then here in a little bit, we will see what's up with the rear. The brake pads for the Subaru just showed up literally like 5 minutes ago. And once I get to a stopping point on this, we'll go shoot those pads in there real quick to make sure I at least solve a problem today. And just kind of go from there. All right, so I swapped out the bolts for the ones that came in the kit. They're a lot longer. They're the wrong thread, but I can get them in there just enough to test this. Pull the adapter out some. There's a pretty big gap in there, but we were expecting that. So I could slide the caliper over the rotor as it fits, over the caliper pulled back so I can kind of see what kind of spacing I needed. And like I said, it looks like we're going to be okay. It looks like we slide this back, we trim off the extra, which is about the thickness that we need on the caliper side, to the bracket, put in the spacer underneath, get the correctly threaded bolts so they go all the way down on top of the spacers, and we are done for the front. So that pretty much solves my issue. So anyways, I'm gonna keep at it and I'll get back to you guys. All right, so we're almost done with the GTO for the day. I just got the rear kit on. He sent me one front that I modified and one rear that went on the way that it should. So let me show you guys what I got. So like I said before, I had a similar kit on this before, using the CTSV Gen 2 4-pot rears and the 6-pot fronts. Now, so this is off of the ATSV. Well, like I said before, manufacturers are not known to constantly reinvent the wheel. They want to sell you the same wheel. So as you can see, this caliper went on this bracket using the bolts from the kit and the factory bolts that put the bracket back onto the spindle, all the same. So I would venture to guess, there's also a spacers that came in here too, right there, that brings the e-brake assembly out into the hat of the bigger rotor. Looking at all this, I'd be willing to bet that once I got a set of ATSV rear calipers, or rotors rather, after being modified in the center just like the fronts needed to, because the hub spacing, the hub diameter is different, I bet they'll go on here just fine, right? Because usually the hats in the rear come out pretty far to accommodate the parking brake, and then the rotor disc itself falls somewhere in here. The beautiful part about it is, if we need to, we can actually shim the bracket and the caliper as necessary to get at the center, right center of the rotor. And I don't think we're going to need to do that. I bet it's going to go on there just like it should, minus whatever modification needs to be made in the hub diameter. Because as you can see, the bolt brackets clear the exact same way as I had them modified from the previous caliper and rotor combination I had back here. Everything bolted on there the same. So I will get a set of rear ATSV rotors ordered and give it a shot. If I can find a set of used ones on Marketplace, I'd much rather do that, since I'm going to be modifying it, and this is all for testing purposes. But neither here nor there, the rear rotors aren't that expensive comparative to the fronts, which are like $1,000 for the set, and those were definitely not $1,000. Not even close. Got those off of eBay. But anyways, we're pretty much done with the GTO for today. I need rear rotors to test everything. I still have the used pads that these came with and all that hardware. So when I put the rotor on, I'll be able to fit everything, change over the brake line from the stock one to this, and rebleed the system. As for the fronts, I'm going to need to order some bolts, the correct thread bolts. I marked these, as you can see, to get a different length when I get the correct thread. I have measured the length about what I need, assuming how much further it's going to go into the bracket itself. I also measured the height I'm going to need for the spacers. I'll need 4 of those, appropriate size for the bolts and diameter, and then I'm going to have to take these to a machine shop. Will probably be the smartest way to do it, and have them just mill this flat on both sides. And then outside of that, we should be able to mount the front caliper, which has pads in it, as you can see, so it'll be able to function as necessary, onto this rotor, which needs to be cut, as you can see. But like I said, this stuff was used. This was like $300 for the set for both sides. And it's a Gucci 2-piece design. Get the rotors cut, put a set of pads in there. It'll look like $1 million, and I didn't spend nearly that to make it happen. So that's it for the GTO for today, because we got to order parts. But since I was able to prove concepts with what I had, now we can authorize to spend more money, if that makes any sense. If you're not familiar with doing projects like this, you really don't want to spend more money than you need, because you have to verify things one step at a time. And this may seem tedious, but I mean, we're using GM stuff. GM calipers, GM rotors, GM front subframe, axles, all of this is GM stuff. GM Holden in some cases, but GM for everything else. That's the best part about it. So somebody spent a lot more money and a much bigger company to prove this stuff safe to use. We just got to figure out how to retrofit it. But so we're trucking right along on the car. Get the brakes finalized. We have some welding to do on the brackets and everything. I have an update for the tail shaft housing for those of you who are waiting for it. I got the CAD models back. I'm gonna send those off to get a quote, and then I'm waiting for my designer friend to get with me to make a modified version as well. So we'll probably have an OEM version that you can modify yourself for slightly cheaper, and then a pre-modified version that's got everything done to it. You bolt it on the car, but more on that later. So we're gonna clean up in here and go out to the Subaru, try to get some things done, and pretty much call it a day. All right, so I'm out here with the Subaru and the Rotoras. I had kind of went off a hunch and ordered a set of STI rotors from the same year that those brakes came off of. And as you can see, there's a significant height difference from here to here. Now, these have a part number on them. It was an MK44I. I tried reaching out to Rotora via email, never heard anything back. So I'll try to give them a phone call and see if I can get these pads ordered for this thing and be done with it. Because outside of that, the rears don't turn. Most because it came with a set of pads. They went in there with help, and they seem to be too tight. So I'm gonna pull the rears back apart at some point, not today because I don't feel like messing with it, and try to get this to rotate again, and then find the right pads to go on the front so that we can complete the brake upgrade on this thing. What I will do though is since I have daylight to kill, is I'm going to probably install the boost controller in the box and set that up on the dash. It's 2 wires. It's a power and a ground, and then you run everything else to the firewall opening I already have. It shouldn't take long. At the very least, I'll run everything in its place and maybe wait to hook up the power and the ground until we have the hooks back up in the car. That way I make sure I have it going where I want it to go. Or jump it off of the wideband power wherever I put that. So it's not a super big deal. It's kind of something to do while I'm out here and the weather is nice. Plus the Blitz boost controller up on the dash in the JDM style right about there would be cool, because that's how I remember it from Option Motoring and Option International DVDs. Anyways, so I'm going to tinker with this thing a little bit longer and then eventually go back inside and edit this video and have for you guys to watch this evening. Alright, towards the end of the day for me, and pretty much done for the most part. So here's what I got so far. Got the boost controller soft installed. I'm not sure how I feel about all of this extra. If I want to put a slit in there, but for right now it's fine. It's not really hard mounted, it's just kind of there. I'll make a bracket with some 2-sided tape or something, so I'll have air fuel on one side and boost controller, which effectively will give me a boost readout at the same time. And then I got some gauges and the stuff down there. I'll probably mount up there, OG JDM style on the dash, and there'll be 2 or 3 gauges there for whatever information I deem necessary, and just kind of go from there. Outside of that, I get this brake pad issue solved, and I got to finish the engine, which is inside, put it back in here, do the whole thing. Got to run an aftermarket knock sensor setup and tune it and see how much that transmission will hold. Now, a lot of you guys have been like, hey, why not do a 5-speed swap or a 6-speed swap or this and that? Listen, man, I'm really not trying to go off the deep end with this car, because I know if I do, there's no coming back from it. There's absolutely no getting any value back out of it, and I'm not really in love with it necessarily. So it's just kind of, you know, I'm just kind of trying to do the best of what I got, since I'm more or less stuck with it. But if I can get a killer deal on a complete 6-speed swap, I would not be opposed to it. It's just the car is slowly evolving into something that I wasn't really intending, and I was hoping to get it running sooner rather than later. So here's what I'll tell you. If I can come across a 5 or 6-speed swap complete with everything that I need, we'll put it in the car. And then we'll do the clutch thing. We'll run some wires around or whatever. Like, sure, I have no problems doing that. Otherwise, we're going to have to do what makes sense, which is run the automatic that's in here, or get it refreshed, rebuilt, or whatever the case, because it costs just as much for just the transmission in a 6-speed car to rebuild the one that's in here to whatever level of power it'll take. Some say 3, some say 4. I've had some manufacturers claim, you know, more than that, 6 or 7 with no proof. And I'm sorry, I don't shop for transmissions that way. I'm gonna need some sort of verification. But neither here nor there, a 6-speed would be dope as fuck. I'll be the first one to tell you, a 6-speed in a little wagon like this would be cool AF. It's just cost, honestly. Now, if I find myself a 6-speed and all the parts and the spindles and the axles and this and that, we'll yank this thing out. We got to do a custom exhaust anyways, and we'll do the whole full Monty. Try to get this thing running sooner or later. Until then, I need to get a set of heads, get them, you know, drilled for the 14mm studs, because that's what the block is designed to use. The appropriate head gaskets, the rings for the pistons that I have, and put it all together. Once I have a complete long block with the cams and timing system and all that, then I'll worry about the driveline and what I'm going to use or what I can come across, because there is absolutely no shortage of blown up Subarus. Like, there's just not. But I have this one, and it's not really worth anything, and I've already got, you know, some parts on it. I don't really feel the need to go through the effort of getting a whole new chassis, unless I got a smoking deal on it, or somebody wanted a 2G so bad they were willing to trade their WRX more or less straight across, and then I kept all the parts to put on said WRX. But as far as this legacy is concerned, that's what we're waiting on. I'm gonna get this pad situation sorted, finish the short block to turn it into a long block, put it on the engine stand, make a couple notes of things I need, put it back in the car, and then go from there. The kit, the turbo kit, the turbo, the long block, and all that will be capable of making boatloads of power. How much power the car actually makes when it's all said and done, I don't know. I guess it depends on what transmission's in it. But I don't know many people have put a whole lot of power to these, in the States anyway. And I just happen to have all the right parts to do something with it. So we'll just kind of play it by ear. But for right now, I'd rather get it running sooner rather than later, so I can kind of do something with it. So here's what we got. And on top of that, I got to get this car fixed, and then keep going on that car, and just all the things. So I'm gonna get back to it. I'm gonna button this thing up and keep it moving. So thanks.